The night didn't break me all at once. It cracked me slowly, like glass under quiet pressure, until I realized I was sitting alone in a half-lit diner, staring at a coffee cup that had gone cold, wondering how I'd managed to feel lonelier with someone than I ever did by myself. The rain outside pressed against the windows as if it, too, wanted to come in and be heard, and in that moment, I felt like my life had paused on a frame I didn't recognize anymore. If you believe that kindness can appear at the lowest moments, that second chances exist even when you feel invisible, then take a second right now to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles, because stories like this remind us we're never as alone as we think. I hadn't planned for the date to go wrong, but looking back, the warning signs were everywhere. We had met through mutual friends who insisted we were perfect for each other, two adults with stable jobs, polite smiles, and matching expectations of what life should look like by now. But the evening felt like a performance instead of a connection. Every sentence sounded rehearsed, every laugh came a second too late, and the silence between us grew heavier with each passing minute. I kept trying, nodding, smiling, asking questions I didn't really care about, while feeling myself slowly disappear behind manners and obligation. By the time we ordered dessert, I already knew this wasn't a story with a future. When the check arrived, she glanced at her phone more than she looked at me. There was no argument, no dramatic ending, just a quiet agreement that this was over before it ever began. She left first, offering a polite goodbye that echoed louder than anger ever could. I stayed seated, unsure why my body refused to move, as if standing up meant admitting something painful about myself. That was when I noticed the waitress again. She had been there all evening, refilling cups, clearing plates. Moving with the tired grace of someone who knew how to stay invisible. There was something gentle about her presence, something grounding, like a calm rhythm beneath the chaos of clinking dishes and humming neon lights. She didn't rush me when she saw I was still there. She didn't give me that look of pity either. Instead, she wiped the counter nearby, pretending not to watch while somehow paying attention to everything. Life hadn't gone the way I imagined it would. By my mid-30s, I had checked all the responsible boxes, job, apartment, routine, but somehow missed the ones that mattered. My last serious relationship had ended years ago, leaving behind more questions than closure. Since then, dating felt like an interview I kept failing for reasons no one could explain. I told myself I was fine alone, but nights like this exposed the lie. I wasn't afraid of being alone forever. I was afraid that maybe I already was. The diner began to empty, chairs flipping upside down on tables, the rain easing into a quiet drizzle. I finally stood to leave, my chest heavy with thoughts I didn't know how to name. As I reached for my coat, the waitress leaned in just enough for her words to land where no one else could hear them. She didn't flirt. She didn't tease. She simply shared something honest, something soft, something that felt like a hand reaching out in the dark. She said she would have stayed. That moment did something to me. Not because of romance, not because of attraction, but because someone saw the part of me that felt discarded and didn't turn away. Her words weren't an invitation, they were a reflection. They told me that maybe the problem wasn't that I was unlovable, maybe I just hadn't been met yet. That I walked out into the damp night feeling different, like a small light had been lit somewhere inside my chest. For days afterward, her voice echoed in my thoughts. Not the words themselves, but the feeling. Different, like a small light had been lit somewhere inside my chest. For days afterward, her voice echoed in my thoughts. Not the words themselves, but the feeling behind them. The idea that presence mattered. That showing up, even quietly, could change someone's entire trajectory. I started noticing things I'd ignored before. The way I rushed through life without ever really being there. The way I treated disappointment as proof instead of experience. I began returning to that diner, not looking for her specifically, but for the version of myself that night had awakened. Sometimes she was there, sometimes she wasn't. When she was, we exchanged small smiles, nods of recognition that said more than conversation ever could. Over time, something shifted. I slowed down. I listened more. I stopped forcing connections and started allowing them. I volunteered at a local shelter on weekends. I called old friends I'd lost touch with. I learned that kindness wasn't just something you received, it was something you practiced, even when no one was watching. Months later, on a quiet evening much like the first, I sat at the same counter. The diner felt warmer now, familiar in a way that felt earned. The waitress poured my coffee and lingered, just a second longer than necessary. There was no dramatic confession, no sweeping gesture. Just two people acknowledging that life had gently nudged them back into the same moment, this time with less fear and more courage. I realized then that what changed everything wasn't her words, it was what they unlocked inside me. That single act of empathy had reminded me of my worth when I had forgotten it myself. It taught me that sometimes, the most powerful love stories don't begin with romance, but with recognition. As the night ended, I stepped outside feeling full in a way that had nothing to do with food. The world hadn't suddenly become perfect, but it felt possible again. And sometimes, that's enough to keep going. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of a moment when kindness changed your life or restored your hope, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe to The Kindness Chronicles. Your engagement helps stories like this reach the people who need them most. Before you go, I have one special request: comment the line, "Kindness stayed with me." Because you never know who might read it and feel a little less alone tonight.